Despite losing game three, the Raptors finally achieved a solid, even awesome defensive performance. They tweaked the matchups to where they wanted them. They got the whistle that they wanted that allowed them to play this brand of basketball. And they had several standout performances, most notably from Pascal Siakam, Precious Achua, and OG Anunoby. But before we get into all of that, please like and subscribe. I'm told it helps the channel. Not only were those three huge motivators in moving Joel Embiid from the low block to above the free throw line to above the break to initiate, but they also scared the hell out of James Harden in isolation, as he was very reluctant to take any of those three off the bounce. The big schematic change from games 1 and 2 to game three was to coax more isolation possessions out of James Harden. Instead of shading him as a scorer and trying to stop him from annihilating them in isolation, they thought, what if we made that what he has to do? Instead of weaponizing his playmaking by shading over, make him beat somebody and then rotate. We can rotate differently depending on what time it is in the shot clock, all these different variables, but at least make him beat somebody before his playmaking becomes dangerous. By changing how they defended him like that, in particular, they affected Maxi's off ball scoring, who had been absolutely obliterating the Raptors up until game three. And he still played well, but they effectively changed his whole outlook in this series. From Lou Satzman's terrific, fantastic piece for the 538, we know that the Raptors have switched 19 pick and roll actions in the Harden and Embiid pick and roll. In addition to that, the Raptors provided more defensive attention towards Maxey, his pick and roll possessions, and tried to funnel the ball above the break, where James Harden could often be found. In this scenario, the Raptors won. James Harden won, and the 76ers lost, at least this part of the game, at least this matchup. Harden did enough in these isolation possessions to drive some offense, but he takes the energy out of the ball when the Raptors are rotating like crazy to try and get back into plays. And that's how you get Tyrese Maxey scoring 30 points per game on 70% shooting, because he's cutting into this defense that is rotating and trying to catch up. When it comes back to Harden, things slow down, the game simplifies, and the Raptors wanted to make the bet that, hey, we'd rather not catch up with Maxey, not catch up with everybody else, and allow Embiid to slip through the cracks of our moving defense for offensive rebounding, for post position, all those things. We're going to see if we can play Harden straight up, and we're going to bet that that looks better at the end of the game than whatever we've been doing prior. And the result was by far their best defensive game. For reference, the points per possession the Raptors defense allowed by game was 1.47, 1.24, and 1.11. If those numbers were to hold up over a season, that is the greatest offense of all time, the greatest offense of all time, and a bottom 10 offense this year. 1.47 points per possession also happens to be one of the most robust offensive nights in playoff history, for what it's worth. So yes, progress was made. So back to the trio. Why are they important? Because all three of them can step out on Maxey, Harden, and Harris, and none of them have to be scram switched out of a post possession if they start out as Embiid's primary or if they switch onto him. This limited how much rotation the Raptors had to do on a lot of possessions because they knew they'd have to move like hell to contain Embiid. Gary, Fred, Boucher, and Flynn, they all brought it too, but this performance didn't hinge on them like it did on the aforementioned trio. All three of them just had absurd defensive plays throughout the game. These far-reaching court coverage plays that end in blocks, steals. One that comes to mind is Siakam getting railroaded by Embiid on a screen, catching up to Harden, who's deciding how to attack Birch, and then blocking him at the bucket. Or just the perfect weak side zones, stunts, closeouts, all of it. As for stopping Embiid, the Raptors helped from one pass away and from the middle of the floor. They wanted Embiid to send it back up the floor or to try and sneak a pass to the weak side corner. 6 turnovers, 2 assists, and the 76ers basically gave up on the low block initiation, and the Raptors radically changed how the 76ers attacked with their big man. And just so it turns out this big man is generational, a singular talent to grace the NBA, and he beat them with the jump shot and contested ones at that. All-timers. Like, we're talking about a perfectly executed hedge and recover by Achua to contain Maxey on the edge, a hard hat isolation possession against Embiid, and the big man just stuck a pull-up jumper in his face. Quite literally, nothing to be done in that situation. A great drop pick and roll possession. The ball funnels to Embiid at 18 feet. Precious gets him to kill his dribble, but Embiid is all time, man. Nothing to be done. If the Raptors want to keep this series alive, this is the game plan they stick with. It can change on the margins, of course, but they found something here. Their half-court offense has to find its way as well. Of course, it was on life support in game 3, but this is what they have to try and achieve again on defense. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you.